Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Podcast Room 303. Introducing one co-host with more nuggets than Chick-fil-A, Nick Morahan. Executive producer until we find someone better, Eric Washington. Nobody really knows what he does around here, Nevada Putnam. And now, the single greatest thing to happen to hosting in history, Jermaine Antonio Colon Mendez. On with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Podcast Room 303, episode 275. Today's episode will be kicking off our NHL Futures series for the year of 2024 with the Atlantic and Pacific divisions. Don't ask me why we picked those two divisions. It's just, we went with the largest oceans. We'll try to keep each one to 30 minutes, maybe 35. So if you want to fast forward to the division of your choice. But with that being said, we love to hear our own voices. Why else would we start our own podcast? So how are you doing this evening, Nevada?
I'm doing well. Entering that time of the year where, with the exception of baseball, all the sports are humming or getting rocking and rolling. So it's a great time of year. Love it.
Yeah, we're almost at Eric's favorite month.
Yeah, that's right. favorite sport month of the entire year.
Yeah.
Guys, it's a thing. Every year.
Favorite time. October.
It is.
Go Birds. How you doing this evening, Eric?
Go Birds. That's how I'm doing. No, I'm doing great, man.
He has to say it. You can say it. He has to say it back.
To you, yes. And on the podcast. But to the retards at the airports and stuff that just be screaming it in public, no. There's a time and a place for everything. And when I'm getting finger searched by fucking TSA, it's not the time for you to be screaming "Go Birds" to me when some dude snuggle deep in me because I'm trying to figure out if I'm sneaking something on a plane. It's just bad timing.
So there you go, ladies. If you ever wanted to holler at your boy Eric, know that he loves the finger popping each other's assholes.
That gets him the real.
What movie is that from?
It's from 21 or 22 Jump Street?
Yeah, there we go.
21, yeah.
21.
Assholes. No, but everything's great. This will probably be the episode that I talk the least in because I don't know dick about hockey, but I'm here to show love.
All right, so before Nevada and I take over with our expert hockey analysis, who do you have winning the Atlantic Division?
The Atlantic? I'm going to go with Boston.
All right,
is that a bad pick?
They had a lot of turnover. We'll get into it.
The Ottawa Senators.
Well,
the Cowboys.
I'm not going chalk, and I'm not picking fucking.
Boston was a fine pick. It's just we don't know what to expect from the team, but it's a well-coached team, well-run organization. So you can stick with Boston.
Yeah.
Who do you have winning the Pacific?
The Pacific. Let me go see who's in there real quick. The Seattle Kraken.
Okay. It's an interesting first-year coach. Wait. Is this it's a new coach, right?
Correct.
Yeah, first-year coach. Yep.
I just don't like the four ahead of them.
Nobody.
You know what? I can rock with Edmonton. I'm going to pick Seattle, but I wouldn't be surprised if the chalk happens and Edmonton wins because they got Jesus.
They paid the fuck out of Draisaitl, too.
Yeah.
All right. So those are Eric's expert hockey picks. We throw quotations around expert for all of us, but we throw an extra set for Eric when it comes to hockey. Hence his Ottawa Senators win it all. How amazing would it be if Ottawa is like the first place team like 20 games into the season?
I wouldn't be surprised.
You heard it here first. That's all I say.
Yeah, the 303 special. All right, Nevada, how do you want to tackle these Atlantic? We'll start with the Atlantic Division.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, sorry, Eric, you want to share the screen?
Yeah. Also, I do have all the departures and the draft in the link if you guys need it, or just ask me and I can tell you.
Oh, yeah, I have that up as well. Where did I put that?
So we'll just run down last year very quickly. 1 through 8 finishing order: Panthers, Bruins, Maple Leafs, Lightning, the Red Wings, the Sabres, the Senators, and then the Canadians rounded out the division. Eric, I believe what I'm seeing here, first row would be Stanley Cup, second is division.
Yep. To make the playoffs, to miss the playoffs, and then they're over under on points.
Got it. So I have these teams out of order. I'll just try to go in order of what they finished with last year. So we'll start with the Panthers. Obviously, defending Stanley Cup champs. They did lose a couple of key guys on the back end. Montour going over to Seattle, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson going up in the division to the Maple Leafs. For those that do not remember, they lost to Vegas. They didn't lose to Vegas. They got shellacked when they played Vegas in the Cup 2 years ago. Won the Cup last year. So, by and large, the team is back. With those two exceptions leaving the team, their team is pretty much status quo. Some of their guys got paid big time. I think the biggest issue for them, they have a significantly aging goalie, Bobrovsky. I think he's got to be 35 by now, if not older. In goalie terms, is getting quite old. How much drive are they going to have? How much gas in the tank are they going to have to compete? Because that would be 3 straight Stanley Cups to go to, not to win, but just to go to.
Yeah, that's what I have in my notes. So it's just like, my exact question: do they have the stamina of the Tampa Bay Lightning dynasty?
I don't think they do. I think they damn near have the talent. Goalie's a little bit different because Vasilevsky's a different animal, especially when it comes to playoffs.
Yeah.
And the head coach, Paul Maurice, has done it for years. But Cooper in Tampa's, he's probably the premier coach in the NHL. So I don't think they have the stamina, certainly not to get to the Cup. But I also do not have them winning this division either. Let's see. I think I do have them making the playoffs, though. I think they'll be one of the top 3 teams in the division. And 102.5.
Real quick, remember when you give me your division winner and your playoffs, also tell me what seed you think they'll finish in the division.
In the division?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go Panthers in the 3rd seed. And I will go under 102.5 points.
Sorry, I'm trying to freeze this row so I can see it on my screen. Oop. Whack. Anyways, I'll take yes to make the playoffs just by proxy of the rest of this division. And I'll take
definitely a top heavy division.
It's top heavy for sure. And you know, we'll get into the other teams, but it's just like, even if we wanted to pick them, I just don't see how I could pick them. They left a lot of meat on the bone. So yes, no to win the Stanley Cup, no to win the division. How many points did they have last year? 110. Yeah, give me the under. And I'll give you where they finished at the end, Eric.
Okay, Dematta, you can do that as well. So just if you want to do that again, cool.
Finishing second last year was Eric's Boston Bruins. They are able to bring over Nikita Zadorov on defense, a big, tall guy. He's always kind of left a little bit on the table. If he could actually use his size, he'd be a top-tier defenseman. They get one of the big free agents, Elias Lindholm, who was a big trade target last year. He ended up going to drawing a blank, but he got moved at the deadline, ended up in Boston. Both of them got big contracts. Linus Ullmark, their goalie for the last few years, their 1A guy, he is now in Ottawa. which gives the net to Jeremy Swayman, who was as good, if not better, than Olmark. The problem is he has not signed a contract, and
Yeah.
it just came out, I believe it was today. He is content on holding out until he gets what he wants, which does not bode well for Boston. If he was in to start the season, I think they could get off to a good start and probably make the playoffs. They lose Jake DeBrusk going over to Vancouver. I'm a little concerned, particularly with this goalie situation. So as it stands right now, because the way this division shakes out, I have Boston missing the playoffs. And under their 99.5. Obviously, that could totally change if Jeremy Swayman gets the deal he wants and signs and gets into camp as soon as he can. But having a goalie hold out, it's very unusual. I would say probably rare. I can't think of one. And that's a concern for me. So I have them out. Great head coach, but that is my biggest concern for them going in right now.
Yeah, it's to not have signed Jeremy Swayman and have traded Tuukka is silly. It's bad organizational management.
Yep.
With that being said, I think they get the deal done, but I don't know if it's before the season. I know that they have a very good prospect goalie. We're going to find out real quick just how good he is. One of the reasons why they felt comfortable moving Tuukka. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure that out. So I'm going under 99.5. I have them yes to make the playoffs, though.
Third from last year are the Tampa Bay Lightning. Kind of an interesting offseason for them. They get Jake Gensel, who was another big free or trade target last year. He got moved to Carolina at the trade deadline, but he comes in as a free agent. He fills in, and some may argue, upgrades from Steven Stamkos leaving, just based on age and a little bit of injury history. Gensel is a great player. He helped motor that Pittsburgh team for a handful of years with the aging roster that they had. Now he comes in, slots in well with Tampa. They moved their second best defenseman in Mikhail Sergachev. They moved him to Utah. He's more of the offensive guy that played alongside Victor Hedman. But they do get Ryan McDonough back, who was there during their cup years. I think the question for them this year is how much does Vasilevsky bounce back? He kind of had a down year last year, but still he's on the short list for best goalies in the world. So with Tampa, I do have Tampa making the playoffs because it's freaking Tampa. Not winning the division, and let's see, they are at 98.5. That's pretty close. I'm going to go just over.
Excuse me, I can't clear my throat. Just over. So let me ask you this. It's not 4 from Atlantic. It's 3 and then 2 spots up for grabs between the Atlantic and Metropolitan?
Correct. So 3 from each division and then 2 highest points left over. Yeah.
Man, that Metropolitan division is stacked.
Yeah. Right now, the way I have it, I think I've got 10. I think I counted 10 teams, 10 or 11 that I had in the playoffs, and I have to cut 3 of them off of there. It's not easy.
And I already said Boston's making it.
Yeah.
I'm going to change Boston to no to make the playoffs, Eric, because I'm going to end up taking probably 5 from the Metropolitan. Man, that's crazy. Boston not making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a byproduct of their own decision making, though. So it is what it is. For Tampa Bay, 98.5. Whoo! What did they have last year? I think this is the most amazing line I've ever seen. Tampa Bay, they 98. That's why it was the most. Yeah. Dude, I was like, that seems so dead on. Oh.
I
Since
think
they play in this division, I'm going to go over.
Yeah, I think they got a little bit better. Obviously, losing your captain in Stamkos is huge, but Gensel is very good.
He's fantastic.
Obviously, younger too, so that's a major benefit. But I think,
and it's a well-run organization.
Yeah, it is.
So give me just over. What an amazing line, pricks.
Yeah.
Give me yes, and give me. Oh man, no, I'm gonna take a different team to win the division. So no, I don't have them winning the division. I think so far now I'm married up with Nevada because I'm assuming that you have Toronto winning the division.
Yes, sir. So next up, we got the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Dallas Cowboys of the NHL. They have no problem in the regular season. It's when they get to the postseason, a lot of their players, a lot of their star talent, the core four, as they say, all but one, maybe two of them disappear. And you cannot have that happen. They bring in Craig Berube, who's the coach for the Blues for the last, 5-6 years. He helped the Blues win their first Stanley Cup in forever. He's a very good coach. He'll get what he needs out of the team. I think where Berube is going to come in handy is in the playoffs. I think he'll be able to get more out of Toronto than what they traditionally get. But again, between John Tavares, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and William Nylander, Nylander typically shows up quite well. Matthews usually does. Marner disappears. Tavares just disappears. So that's going to be the issue for Berube. Can he get the most out of those four guys? They added a lot of good free agents. Like I said, Oliver Ekman-Larsson staying in the division. He had some pop on the defensive side. They get Max Pacioretty on a professional tryout. He's traditionally like a 30-goal scorer. He's just getting up there in age and having injury issues. But regardless, I think he would probably make the roster as well. They are much more deep and hungry. I think free agents realize like, hey, if I don't want to say America's team, but the quote unquote hockey's team, Canada's team, whatever you want to call it, if they're going to win, they got to start doing it right now. So I have them winning the division. Obviously, yes, to make the playoffs. And as such, I will have them over 102.5.
I have depth, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, question mark, circled. That was my main takeaway with Toronto. So yes, I have them winning the division. I'll take them over on points. Yes, to make the playoffs. I think they're actually going to contend for the President's Trophy this year, which is naturally the kiss of death in the postseason. That's where I'm concerned with. That's where that fourth, punctuation comes in, that question mark. How is this depth going to handle a postseason run? It does not inspire confidence, but they have played better in the postseason the last few years. And if Nevada, the way you just talked about Berube coming in and being a legitimate coach, then, maybe they do make some noise. But I do have them competing for the President's Trophy this year, especially in this division.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the President's Trophy. I don't want to say they're a dark horse, but they're probably on the short list of contenders for that. And they could very well get that. Their goalie that it sounds like they're going to roll with is Joseph Wall, who has shown he can do everything that needs to be done. His one bugaboo is he gets injured. So if he can stay away from the injury bug, then yes, they very well could compete for that President's Trophy. But next up, fifth from last year's, the hated Detroit Red Wings. Obviously, they get Patrick Kane back. They just signed one of their young studs, Lucas Raymond. He was an RFA. They still have to sign their stud defenseman, Moritz Seider. He is still currently an RFA. They almost made it last year. It came down to the last game, and I can't remember if they were the morning game or the evening game, something like that. But they had to win to get in. They won, but who would that have been? Another team won the afternoon game, or vice versa, and that's how they did not get in. So they're right there. They're a team that's slowly on the up and coming.
It was the Capitals, brother.
That's right. Thank you. The so-called Yzer plan, Steve Yzerman, the GM. It's getting to that point where it's shit or get off the pot. So
it's hot seat.
Yeah, he's shown he can do it because he did it with Tampa. He built that Tampa juggernaut, and now he's with his team in Detroit trying to do it there. So they did also bring in Vladimir Tarasenko, which doesn't hurt from an offensive perspective. Their question is going to be, what stable of goalies do they go with? They got Cam Talbot, Ville Husso, who was there last year, Alex Lyon, who showed flashes last year, and then they also signed the ghost of Jack Campbell. And unfortunately, they're in that situation for another couple of years because they do have two very good stud prospects, but they're a year, if not 2 years out. So that's where they're stuck with right now. I think it'll probably be Cam Talbot. He's shown he can do it. The biggest problem with him is he's just old. But with that being said, I obviously don't have them winning the division. I do have them making the playoffs, though. Again, they're right there last year. They've showed they can get there. And then obviously over 90.5 points.
I just don't see the leap. It's such a hard team to gauge.
Yeah. And they don't have to necessarily leap.
They had 91 last year. You're right.
So they're right there. Usually if you're mid-90s, you're probably one of the last two teams in.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had them in the playoffs last year, and they made moves this year to get better. But for some reason, I'm more skeptical on them of this year. Can't really put my finger on it. So I'll take what's the over-under setup for Detroit? 90.5?
90.5.
Yes.
I'll take the under. I'll take no to make the playoffs. I have them finishing 5th in this division, though. And just for the record on the other ones, I'll go first Toronto. I'll go 2nd Tampa Bay, 3rd Florida. And I'll go 4th Detroit and 5th Boston. Shit, maybe I do have Detroit making it. I'll think about it.
Yeah. Let's see. 5th. Next up, 6th in the division last year, the Buffalo Sabres. This team
Did nothing.
Detroit and Ottawa are all in the same boat, particularly last year, but this year as well, where it really is a shit or get off the pot. These are teams that are expected to start making jumps. They got a lot of youth in them. Everybody's waiting for them to be like the next, I don't want to say powerhouses, but at least consistently going after the division and getting in the playoffs. Like Jermaine said, Buffalo did shit. I think they probably, my biggest takeaway from Buffalo this offseason, they might have hired the completely wrong head coach for their team. Their team is young and exciting, so there's probably going to be growth regardless. But they brought back a retread of Lindy Ruff, who was the head coach for the Devils last couple of years, and he is not inspiring, at least for a young team. He is an old head. I don't know how you connect someone who's 70 some odd years old to a bunch of 20-year-olds and try to get them to play.
Someone would describe him as rough around the edges.
Very good there. Yes. It could be wrong, but again, you have so many different options to go after young and exciting head coaches. I mean, it's in every league, right? It's always, a lot of times it's retreads of this guy did this 20 years ago. Okay. The team basically stays the same age. The head coaches keep getting older. You start getting farther and farther from that connection. So I have them know all across the board. 88 to be 40. I'll go under under 88.5. We'll see if their goalie, Devin Levi, takes a step. If he does, he'll be a stud, but I don't think he's going to get the most out of his team, which is a shame because they're very talented.
Yeah, they did what the Chicago White Sox did when they hired Tony La Russa. And, it could kill any momentum that they have. They didn't do anything in the offseason which is shocking for a team that didn't make the playoffs. I guess they just see the growth happening in-house. I don't see it. So I'm out on Buffalo, so I'll take the under points. I'll take no to make the playoffs, and obviously they're not winning the division or Stanley Cup. They don't make playoffs, so
yeah.
But yeah, I was disappointed because Buffalo was a dark horse team we had last year to make the playoffs. We're like, hey, Buffalo could make noise this year, and they finished with, I believe, 87 points. And then the only thing, 84 points. And then the only thing of note that I'm really looking at is they got rid of Skinner for no reason.
Yeah, he just had a big contract, and yeah, he was kind of up and down, but last year he did really well. But yeah, it's a shame because this could be a really fun team, and they've shown it actually as well. They're one of the most high-powered teams from an offensive side, but oh man, they could really compete. So,
bummer. They're supposed to get better, not stay the same.
Yeah, it is a shame because they're kind of wasting the youth. But who knows? Maybe they believe in Lindy more than all the other people looking outside do.
Yeah, or if Jack Quinn comes back, and because he missed time last year, so Jack Quinn comes back and plays how we know Jack Quinn can play. Maybe that's all they need to get put over the top. I don't expect it. I'm hitting the fade on him this year.
Yeah. Next up, Ottawa. Pretty short and simple on this one. Again, kind of like Buffalo. They don't have nearly the offensive or the youth talent. They do probably have the better overall player in Tim Stützle. Who's a fantastic forward. He's taken leaps and bounds every year. He's going to be their cornerstone guy. But other than that, I'm not really thrilled about their roster. Obviously, they get Linus Ullmark from Boston, but I would not expect the same production he had in Boston that he does in Ottawa. Those are two totally completely different teams.
Don't have the same defense.
Yeah. So
I'm fighting for my life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all across the board under 90.5 for Ottawa.
Ottawa is going to be exciting to watch this year. It'll be a fun hockey team to watch, I think. I don't think they're going to do anything. So the question I put down, new owner, management, and coach, same old Ottawa? And the answer is going to be yes.
For at least another year or two, yeah.
Yeah, give me the under points. Give me no to make the playoffs, and then obviously no across the board. I have the Ottawa Senators finishing above Buffalo, so I'll put them 6th, and I'll put Buffalo 7th. And then obviously that puts Montreal 8th.
So yes, Montreal, the final team. I will say this. I don't think they'll finish last. That being said, obviously they don't really have a goalie, which, is fairly important for hockey.
Yeah, you don't need one of those.
But this team, I think this team will surpass Buffalo as far as not star power, but that youth jolt of power. They get Patrick Laine from, I believe it was the Kings. He got traded. He can score. He's an offensive machine. The problem is he's just not consistent. Sometimes he doesn't care about playing, which is his biggest bugaboo. If he actually played and cared about playing and being good, he'd be probably a top 15, top 20 kind of offensive guy. But he just does not turn it on consistently, and that's his issue. Having another year under Martin St. Louis as head coach has done very well for their offensive youth guys. Yaroslav Slavkovsky, who is number 1 overall 2 years ago now. He took a big step forward last year. He's only 20. I believe he's 20, maybe 19. I think he's only 20 right now.
What was his name?
Yaroslav. I always mix up his first name and his last name. Last name is Slavkovsky. Slafkovsky. I think it's Juraj is his first name.
Yeah. I'm looking at it. He's 20 right now. Born in 2004.
He was kind of a head scratcher at 1 when Shane Wright was supposed to go number 1, but he is starting to show why he was picked number 1. And we'll get to Shane Wright on the other side. But he is taking, like I said, last year, he took big leaps and bounds. I would expect him to keep going that way. He's got the talent. He's got the size. The other one to keep an eye on is going to be their rookie, might be a Calder dark horse, Lane Hudson on the blue line.
So you're projecting him to make the team then?
Lane Hudson, yes.
Ooh,
if they are fine with him coming out. I think he's ready to play right now. He's obviously going to get exposed a bit on the defensive side just because of his size. That is what it is. But there's other guys on their defense who can pick up a little bit of that defensive slack. Offensively, he's phenomenal. Kind of the idea to think of him is picture a mix of Quinn Hughes from Vancouver with Adam Fox on the Rangers.
That's funny. I was thinking Adam Fox when you said he was good at offense.
So he's not as fast as Quinn Hughes, but he's got that offensive drive once he gets in the offensive blue line. And then as far as fakes and dekes, he's not as good as Cale Makar. That's why he's more in line with like a Adam Fox. But he's got that kind of pedigree where he could be a big problem for opposing wingers trying to cover him in the offensive zone. Again, in the defensive zone, yeah, he's going to get exposed and stuff like that just based on size. But you can't teach size. So
yeah, not everyone's Cale Makar, but Adam Fox did win. He won a Norris Trophy, right?
He did. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I do not have them making the playoffs, but I do have them over. Oh man, I don't know. That goaltending's scary though. I was that over under at 76.5 was low, but I was like, oh shit, but they don't have goaltending. Yeah, I'll probably go under for just because of that goaltending.
Oh, I just realized I was going under on points. Yeah, I stand by what I said. I'm fading this division this year. Montreal, I have rebuild, period. That's where I'm at with Montreal. They're in a rebuild. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in hockey. So
no,
I give me the over on points on them, but no for everything else. Even if they go over, they're still nowhere near the projected point totals of the 3 teams above them. So all my picks are in line. And I don't think the Stanley Cup winner comes from this division.
Agreed.
Anything else on this one, Nevada?
I don't think so. Again, Just going through it, talking about it, you can see it's top heavy. I think realistically for this division, I think I had 5 going through, but I took Boston out, so I think I had 4. Just because when we get to the Metro, that one also is very top heavy, and a lot of blue bloods essentially in that one. Which, again, Detroit was my one that was due. I think they just get over that bit of a hump just to make it as an 8th seed. I don't think they compete for one of the top 3 spots in the division, but I think they'll hang around there, right there in that 4 spot, just enough. But a lot of talent in this division. However, a lot of wasted talent and opportunity in this division as well.
Yeah, and it's you typically have 4 come from every division most of the time, despite the option to get 5 from one division. I just see the Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo benching, like grouping, to be, and Boston to be so in line with the top of the Metropolitan division that I think Metropolitan is going to sneak a 5th one in.
Yeah,
but obviously we'll get into that when we get into the Metropolitan.
Yep.
Let's so I think that wraps up our Atlantic division right at the 36 minute mark, so that's not too shabby. Let's go ahead and move into the Pacific division here.
Yes. So last year, finishing first was the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, they kind of came out of nowhere, probably a year earlier than people expected. They ended up losing in the first round to. Is that right? First round to no, they did not lose because they played Nashville. Take that back. They lose Elias Lindholm. Like I said, he went to Boston. He's a great second line center. They replace him, ironically enough, with a Boston guy in Jake DeBrusk, who doesn't get as much points, but he's still a very solid offensive weapon for them. Obviously, they still have Quinn Hughes, who's the second or third best D-man in the league. Let you take a wild guess who's the best. I think offensively and defensively, because they lost Dorov as well. They lost people, but they brought people in, so they kind of should stay afloat. The problem with Vancouver that they're going to run into is that their starting goalie, Thatcher Demko, has health issues, particularly in his knee, which is one of those things I heard the other day. It's not something that will necessarily get better with rehab or surgery. It's more of a, can you just play with it and tolerate it? Which took him out of the playoffs last year. So how much of that, how healthy is he, healthy and effective is he truly going to be? Luckily for them, they re-signed their backup, Arthur Shelovs, who stepped in the playoffs and played well. It sounds like he will probably be the starter out of the gate until Demko comes back. Again, to what capacity and how effective is Demko remains to be seen. They actually, Vancouver, they think they kind of talked to, I think Shelovs is Slovenian or Slovakian. He was over there playing in Europe in the offseason, and people think they kind of told the national team, hey, don't play him. He's going to be our number 1 to start. So all of a sudden he popped up with a injury designation and stopped playing over in Europe.
In Europe. And
Yeah.
Who was this? The backup goalie?
Yeah. I believe it's some weird version of Arthur, but Shelovs, Silvos. So again, I think the offense takes a little bit of a step back. Nothing dramatic. Defense is still going to be there. They have a great head coach. I have them making the playoffs. I do not have them winning the division, but I will have them. I'll have them. Oh boy, 99. That's right there.
That's the perfect line.
I'll have them over. Hopefully some overtime games push them over. I'll go over 99.5.
Another back-to-back 100-point seasons.
Fuck, they were at 100 last year.
They had 109 last year. Oh, hold on, wait. Vancouver. Oh, I'm in the wrong year. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, that sounds about right because they were ahead of Edmonton. So
yeah, they had 109 last year. Their goalies hurt. They lost Elias Lindholm and Nikita Sadorov.
yeah, so it's essentially 50 wins or say like 44 and like 6 ties.
Yeah, they went 50, 23, and 9 last year.
Ah, man, yeah, that's tight. You know what? I'll go just under then.
Yeah, I'm going under. For my note on Vancouver, I was like, do they continue progress? I don't know. I think they make the playoffs again. I think they're a well-coached team. I think they play pretty well together. Hearing about that goalie that they're bringing over is a little reassuring from that perspective, as long as he, can hold his own in the NHL. So I'll take under points, yes to make the playoffs, and no on not they won't win the division. I'll get you the order a little later.
Second up, Edmonton Oilers, who made the Stanley Cup Finals entertaining. I think Jermaine said it earlier in the show. Leon Draisaitl got paid. He is now the highest paid, or I guess will be once his contract goes into effect, will be the highest paid player in the league until Connor McJesus signs his contract, presumably next offseason. Edmonton, I think they are on the very short list to be a President's Cup contender. Obviously, it runs by Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I don't see how they're going to start slow again. They started so slow. I think they were 6th or 7th in the division right around Halloween, headed into or not Halloween. They start then about Thanksgiving time. Usually
ugly first 20 games.
Yeah, usually you use Thanksgiving kind of as a barometer as far as if teams are in a position to make the playoffs or not. They were way out of position, and then they turned it on. Once they've let go of their coach, brought in Knobloch, they still got Paul Coffey as one of the defensive coaches. They have a second defensive coach who kind of teaches the defensive side and stuff like that. They did lose Broberg and Holloway to offer sheets that St. Louis provided to him. Broberg's the biggest hit. He was an up-and-coming young defenseman to pair along with Evan Bouchard, who I have as a dark horse for the Norse this year. Evan Bouchard is a great defenseman. He's an offense, obviously playing with Leon and Connor. He's going to get points. Zach Hyman, he had, I want to say it was 54 goals, and I think it was 51 of them came within like the 2 feet of the net. So that kind of tells you he found his sweet spot as far as where he needs to get his points production. Sounds like Evander Kane has injuries in his legs that will require surgery. So is he a long-term IR candidate? Who knows? And then Stuart Skinner, their goalie, who turned it on in the playoffs when he needed to. Kind of along with the team, if he starts slow, they may have to slug out some 6-5 wins. But if he's able to kind of pick up where we left off on the cup run, where he's got that confidence and he's playing really well, they should tear up the league in points. And he's one of my dark horse candidates for Vezina for best goalie. But again, he's got to start out right. So
I love that pick.
Yeah, I got them winning the division. and over 108.5 points. But they got to start hot. They can't do what they did last year and just turn it on.
Yeah. So Edmonton, what did I write down for them? Give me 1 second. Did the new GM do enough? That was the question that I asked. And then I followed it up with they only need to win one more game. Right? Because they were in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. I don't normally try to do one-for-one comparisons the year after, you know what I mean? But Edmonton gives off Florida Panthers vibes from last year. So I'll take the over on points, even though it has 108.5. I'll take them, yes, to make the playoffs, yes, to win the division. I have them first, obviously. And then give me yes to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I picked them last year, and then I was nervous the first 20, 25 games. I kept talking about it in the chat. Just could not believe what I was watching. They were able to turn it around. Losing younger talent, especially drafted, developed talent, is always a bummer. But this could be one of the best Edmonton teams we've seen. We just need Leon Draisaitl to be healthy in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then yeah. And that's why I thought that, Skinner pick for the Vezina was a great choice, because I think Edmonton's going to speak softly and carry a big wooden hockey stick this season and just hit people over the head with it.
And, I mean, how many years have we said they could be a real threat in the playoffs if their goaltending was shored up?
Exactly.
And if he continues on the track that he left off on, then yeah, they very well will be one of the 2 or 3 teams that should be in a legit cup conversation. Moving down south, finishing third last year was the LA Kings. They got rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois, which was good for them. He got paid in LA and then played like doo-doo. So luckily for them, they were able to get out from underneath that contract. I kind of see the Kings similar to the Hurricanes, which we'll get to next time, but they have really good kind of upper end offensive players, but not necessarily a superstar. A McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, Pasternak, stuff like that. The close one they have is probably Anze Kopitar, who's no slouch by any means, but he's not necessarily a superstar. They got good depth. Defense is solid. Darcy Kemper comes over from Washington. I guess the question for them will be, can he get back to old form that he had before he played in Washington? Because last year in Washington was no bueno.
They made the playoffs in spite of him.
Yes. Luckily they had to ride their young gun. But and then Quentin Byfield, kind of like Slavkovsky, another guy who was a very high draft pick. Has a lot of talent, and last year he started to show that he could put it together. He kind of fell apart a little bit in the second half, so I think it'll be key for them to get another few steps out of him to see that growth to continue. Let's see, for the Kings, obviously no for the division. 1, 2, 3. I will go yes to make the playoff.
You have them finishing third, so that would make sense.
Fourth.
Oh, that's fourth. Las Vegas is third. Okay.
96.5. I think they'll be under 96.5. I think they'll be an 8 seat. I guess they weren't last year, but I think they'll be right there in that 7-8 seed spot.
They're a fringe playoff team for sure. So the under is the right play. I'm taking the under as well. If this team makes the playoffs, you don't want to see them.
Correct.
I am not confident this team makes the playoffs, though. I think they're going to be battling it out, and I see them missing the playoffs, unfortunately. So I have them to make the playoffs in under 96.5. I think that line's way too high. They haven't fixed goaltending in it feels like they have. When was the last time Jonathan Quick was good? Pre-COVID?
yeah, for them, yeah.
So I still don't have the answer. Now Darcy proved it when he had that 2022 run with your boys that he can catch fire.
Yes.
And especially in the postseason. And that's why I'm saying if they do make the postseason, this is a team to make some noise, especially because depth usually wins out in the postseason. But they won't get there. I have them finishing 5th in this division, and which will bring me to one of my dark horses to regain form. But we can go move on to the next one.
All right, next up is the Vegas Golden Knights. Obviously, a bit of a down year last year. Everybody thought they would kind of get back into the playoffs and kind of storm through it again, but they really never could get consistent play and catch fire like they did when they won the Cup the previous year. It doesn't help that their original starting goalie, Robin Lehner, who was out all last year, he is again on long-term injured reserve in his final year of the contract, so he is effectively done with Vegas. They bring in Ilya Samsonov, who most recently played for Toronto, but he also played with the Islanders. He's a solid goalie. He's kind of one of those guys where he could be a top-tier guy, but he just hasn't shown it. Still solid, but not who you'd want. But again, a very serviceable guy. They get Alexander Holtz from the Devils, who was a high draft pick. Little surprised the Devils let him go, especially considering who they brought in at head coach. But he's got the talent. He could fit in quite well there. Losing Marchessault sucks, especially in the playoffs. He always showed up in the playoffs for them. They still have Mark Stone, assuming he doesn't get put on long-term injured reserve for some random reason. Obviously, they still have Jack Eichel and Wild Bill Carlson, probably some of the better 1-2-3 punches in the league. They lost Alec Martinez to the Blackhawks, but their defense is still solid. So I have them making. Let's see. Yes, I have them making the playoffs. I think they'll be one of the top 3 seeds. So it's 97 is right about there. So I'll go just over. Obviously, no to win the division, but over on points, making the playoffs.
Yeah. So Vegas, I wrote down championship core exodus. What is it? So they lost 7 players in the offseason. 6 of them were on the Stanley Cup winning roster. 13 players remain from that championship team. We're only one season away from that. So there's been a lot of turnover. But this was widely discussed heading into the playoffs by us last year. They made a lot of fat acquisitions to make another run at the Cup, which ballooned their cap and basically let us know that they were looking at letting a lot of these people go. I think Jonathan Marchessault was a dumb person to let walk.
Mm-hmm.
That was like their original guy.
He's a perfect playoff guy, especially for them.
He was Mr. Golden Knight to me.
Yeah.
Whenever I thought about the Golden Knights, it was Jonathan Marchessault. I saw him leaving, and I was just like, what are we doing, boys? What are we doing? Team's still talented, top to bottom. For me to sit here and be like, oh, I can't believe they lost all these players and did not expect them to perform in the regular season. It's kind of crazy. I'll take the over 97.5 and yes to make the playoffs. I actually think it's going to finish Edmonton, Vegas, Vancouver. So that'll be the 1, 2, 3 there. I think Aiden Hill builds on some of that confidence that he mustered in the postseason, and he kind of cements himself as the 1A on that tandem, especially because I'm not really sold on Ilya Samsonov just in general. You already talked about it. I think it's a between the ears kind of thing. I don't. He's not consistent. And that's like my biggest issue with him. So I think he'll play second fiddle to Aiden Hill, and Aiden Hill has kind of a good run this year. And if Vegas is hot, you could even see him maybe in the All-Star game. Don't see him as a dark horse for the Vezina though. Look, Vegas turns out Vegas is a real well-run organization. So I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt as the expansion team. But Edmonton is clearly king in this division this year.
Yeah. Vegas knows how to bring in players, but on the back end, kind of like Marchessault and others, they are cutthroat and ruthless. They will throw you aside and be like, yeah, we're done with this toy. Bring in the next one.
It fits for the city of Las Vegas.
There's
no sentimentality. It's just like build the new shiny casino. Let's keep it pushing. That's kind of how they treat their team. Honestly, it's shrewd business. They take flyers on young, talented players, and then they ended up developing them into big time good players for them, and then they let them walk. And usually they don't live up to the same expectation they don't deliver the same as when they were with Vegas. That's my assumption, maybe anecdotally speaking, but that's just kind of how I see those players. I do think Jonathan Marchessault will I think he's gonna have a big season this year. I think he's pissed off about getting the axe.
We'll get to that nightmare of a team next time. But moving on, we got the Calgary Flames, who finished 5th. These guys definitely took a step back. They still got Nazem Kadri, Mikhail Backlund, and Sharon Govich, which is a good center lineup. But this could very well be a team that's going to be a seller at the deadline. Their defense is lacking. Their goaltender, as it stands right now, is a vacuum, as Jacob Markstrom left. So really they're relying on the rookie Dustin Wolf, who won goalie of the year in the AHL, which is essentially the AAA of NHL. They're very high on him. He's a highly regarded prospect. So, if he stands on his head, sure, they could compete. I just don't know if they have the talent in front of him to help him stand on his head. And rookie goaltenders, it's feast or famine with them. And I don't think he's necessarily going to get the defensive help that he needs to thrive. I think he'll do okay, but it could be completely wrong on that as well. So I have them to make the playoffs. 81. I will go over on points, not by much.
I agree with Nevada. I think they developed a lot of players last season, and Calgary has had to move since Calgary has made those postseason runs, and they were kind of a perennial choice to make the playoffs and contend. They've maneuvered it quite nicely. Gotten rid of players, brought in players, developed players. So I think they go over and they'll be competing for a spot in the playoffs. I just think they're going to come up short, which has me putting them 6th in the division. But this is one of those teams that another year of skating underneath the young guys on their team, the people they brought in the offseason, and that next year we could be talking about Calgary making some, potentially making the playoffs, making some noise in that perspective. I think they're going to be fun and scrappy to watch this year.
Yeah, they'll probably be a little bit of a prick team especially with Kadri, but if they're in a position that I think they're in, they may try to move, especially the older guys, to try to free up cap space and give some younger guys some opportunity to get their ears wet. So Next up is Anaheim Ducks, who finished 7th last year.
Wait, did we do the Seattle Kraken?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Seattle Kraken. Let's see. Seattle here. This team, since they came into the league, is the penultimate example of having no superstars on your team, but just having solid guys who play as a team and play as a unit. I believe it was last year or maybe the year they went to the playoffs. I believe it was 8 or 9 guys had 20 goals.
Yeah, that was when they went to the Western Conference Finals. It was I believe, second season.
Yeah, that would be their second year. So they're kind of still in that trend. They don't have a superstar by any means. Matt Bernier's I'm pretty sure he's been named the captain, the young gun. He had a sophomore slump last year, which is to be expected. It's kind of I don't want to say a rule in sports, but it's damn near a rule. He had a dip in production. Hopefully get some production out of him again. Shane Wright, like I mentioned earlier, he was supposed to go number 1 overall, fell to 4th. He's currently still in the AHL, one of those guys who can kind of tear it up in the AHL, but just hasn't translated to the NHL. So one of those JV heroes, varsity zeros so far, which you hope for the guy he can figure it out, especially being initially in a consensus number 1 overall pick who just fell a few spots.
Is he's not starting in the AHL though, right? He's going to be on the main squad.
I haven't looked into that. I would imagine he's probably going to fight for a spot. I don't know if they want him to season in the AHL some more. He's in that weird spot where he can't really develop too much more in the AHL because he tears it up. But as soon as he gets to the NHL, he doesn't. So it may have to be one of those things where they just bite the bullet and have him play in the NHL and learn from his licks and bruises. But it's a tough spot for him. Goaltending it's a yo-yo every year. One year it's Grubauer, the next year it's Decord. Who knows who's going to be the netminder for them going into the year. Ultimately, what it comes down to is because they don't have superstars, they got some pretty decent depth, but again, no superstars. You don't have guys that are going to be scoring 40 goals, 30. You might have 1 or 2 guys. You cannot afford to have anybody not produce on this team. And that's asking a lot from every person, every spot. It works really nice when the whole team works as one unit. But again, I think if they could get one superstar in there, I think they could be more of a threat. So I have them no for the playoffs, and I have them just under 87.5 points.
They made a coaching change in the offseason. They brought in Dan Bilsama, who led their AHL affiliate to the title last year.
And he won the cup with Pittsburgh. Was that probably been 10 years ago now?
Yeah. I think he's a fantastic coach. And that's why I have them as the 4th team from this division making the playoffs. So I'm going 4th and yes and over. We're not far removed from talking about this team as being incredibly competitive. And as Nevada likes to describe as hockey teams, they're going to be another prick team. And in a division that I think the top guys got worse, minus Edmonton. I think Edmonton actually did get better. I think Seattle can make some noise. And, if they can get any sort of production out of Shane Wright with this squad, if he does make this squad, which is why I asked the question, it could help propel them further. And so that's why I have them making the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Yeah. You and me are pretty close in lockstep. Do you have LA 5th?
I have LA 5th. Yeah, and I have
Yeah.
Seattle. I have Seattle going 4th, so I just flipped them, I think.
Yep, I have Seattle 5th, LA 4th. So both teams that are right there on the fringe. All right, Seattle again 7th, Anaheim Ducks. I see this team kind of as the Buffalo Sabres of the West. They got a lot of young talent. They don't have the defensive prospects like Buffalo does, but their offense has the potential to be very exciting. They got Leo Carlson last year, who played well. Trevor Zegras, hopefully he can be healthy, get back to his rookie year self. He's obviously got the talent. Cutter Gauthier, who threw a fit in Philly and basically said, "Fuck you guys, I ain't playing for you. Trade me, because I ain't playing." So they traded him to Anaheim. He's nasty. He, I think, was probably gonna. I think he did sign his entry level, so he should be playing. They got good young defensive prospects led by Owen Zellweger. This is an up and coming team. Might be one more year away. The problem with that is John Gibson is not getting any younger. And fortunately, I think this year is just going to be another trip around the sun for him. Hopefully he can make it another year or two so he can take this young, exciting team to the playoffs and see what happens in there. So no for the playoffs for the Ducks. 70. I will go under 70.5, I think. Yeah.
I am Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
I'm done putting any faith or stock in the Anaheim Ducks. This is what I wrote for them. Rebuild ? Zegras ? Can they prevent skids and win more regularly ? Growth, but they will look good doing it because those uniforms are sick.
Yeah. Thank God they got rid of their other ones. They went back to the old school ones with a nice little color scheme.
Yeah, they crushed the uniforms, and that's all they're crushing this year. I think they will have a double-digit point increase, and that'll still put them under 70.5.
Yeah.
I have them at 69 or 70 points, which is why I don't like this line.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me the under. I'll put them 7th because the San Jose Sharks are that bad. Just to get out ahead of it, under and 8th for San Jose. And before I turn it back over to Nevada, the only note I have for San Jose is like, how does Macklin accelerate the rebuild? And and then obviously I wanted to talk about their worst season in franchise history last year. So,
yeah. So San Jose, they're interesting because they got a few guys. Obviously, Macklin Celebrini, the number 1 overall pick. So far in camp, or I guess what would be considered like OTAs for hockey, he is making people's mouths drop. He is being every bit advertised as the number 1 overall pick. Very impressive. Yeah, it'd be nice to have that one at Jermaine.
Yeah, it would.
Tyler Toffoli comes over. I think he could be a good stabilizing veteran presence for Celebrini. Toffoli's always been a nice offensive addition to whatever team he goes to. I think he'll be able to lean on, or Macklin will be able to lean on him. Their defense is subpar, which leads into their other bright spot, Yaroslav Askarov, who got traded from Nashville just a couple weeks ago. He pulled a Cutter Gauthier and said, fuck you, Nashville. If you're not going to make me the starter, because they gave Saros an 8-year deal, then I'm out. I ain't playing for you. Trade me, but I ain't playing here. So they did. And he is generally considered the best goalie prospect in the league. He's like 1A, 1B, depending on who you talk to. The problem with that is, again, with that subpar defense, how is he going to hold himself and or develop when he's facing 40 shots a game, 40, 45 shots a game? Some goalies love that, where they start to get in a groove. Varlamov was like that. You give him 50 shots a game, he lets in 1 or 2. He gets 20 shots a game, he lets in 3 or 4. So it's kind of the pace of the game and how soon he can get into a rhythm. So that remains to be seen. I am excited for Askarov. Obviously, very excited for Macklin Celebrini. He's kind of helps rejuvenate that Southern California hockey life, but obviously no for the playoffs. They got a lot of holes still to fill. 64. God, that's only 32 wins out of 82.
Yeah, but
that's the situation.
They didn't win 20 last year.
I think they're not going to be the worst team in the league. No. I don't think. Unfortunately, we'll get to that later, but 64, 12-game jump. It's tough to say because I don't know how well Askarov is going to keep him in games. I'll go under just because that is a lot of games to hang on your goalie's head. But
they're looking at essentially adding 20 points with 47 last year. It's like, I just don't see how you get to 47 despite all the good they did. I mean, Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini are going to be playing together this year. So,
yep. So they're definitely on the upswing, but again, they got three or 4 holes filled out of a team of 22. So they got a lot of work to do. That being said, I think free agents will start going there just like they did with Bedard in Chicago in this offseason, which we'll talk about next time. So they'll start to pile in the pieces they need to plug holes, but it's going to take a couple years. And again, they think they got the goalie of their future. I can't disagree with them. He should be maybe not phenomenal, but he should be very good. But yeah, we'll see. It's going to be definitely a development and experience learning year for the Sharks.
Man, they traded. That's a good trade. That's a good trade. To shore up your goaltender when you're going into a rebuild with those back-to-back top 4 picks is.
Yeah.
And San Jose, if we were ranking based on off seasons, San Jose is
right. And
one of the best ones.
And the nice thing too about Askarov, because he is so good, he is still very young. I think he's 22, 23, which for a goalie is like having a 19-year-old NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he turned 22 in June.
Yeah, that's incredibly young. Most goalies don't really see the NHL until they're probably closer to 30. So to come in at 22 and to be as highly valued as a prospect as he is, he definitely has the mindset, hey, I'm the number one. I mean, that's what he did to Nashville. He got a freaking neck tattoo and said, I'm number one. I'm playing or I'm gone. And they said, well, Saros has got 8-year deal. Okay, fucking trade me. I ain't going to the AHL. I'm an NHL goalie. And they said, okay, here you go, San Jose.
It's a bet on himself. Clearly everyone values him. They got a first-round pick back in the trade. But,
yep.
Saros, who's played as much as Saros in the probably Vasilevsky.
Vasilevsky and Hellebuck, probably.
Probably. Right? And those are all perennial Vezina, contenders.
Yep.
So I didn't realize that they signed him until we started doing this episode. That's a pretty big deal, actually. God, God, why couldn't the Hawks get a goalie, dude?
It's kind of funny because you have two different teams on today's episode that we talked about. Well, briefly, the Predators took care of their goalie. Hey, here's your deal. We'll ship off Askarov. You go the flip side with Boston. They did not sign Swayman or get a deal worked out with him before they shipped off Ullmark. So after they shipped off Ullmark, now Swayman's got all the leverage he wants.
All the leverage.
He says, give me what I want or I'll hold out for it.
I believe
that's where they're at.
Fuck you. Pay me.
Yep. Exactly.
And here's the thing, like, based on that postseason run he just put together,
yep,
Boston should not have gone as deep. It was all him, basically. I felt like that team underperformed, except for Swayman was like, nope, that's not a goal. Nope, that's not a goal. That's not a goal. And Boston had a nice little playoff run. But
the problem is that he played so well that his asking price is astronomical. I think last I heard he wanted like an 8x11, 11.5, which for a goalie is absurd because Bobrovsky was at like 10 or 10.5. Vasilevsky might be at 10 or 11. But
so we're talking he wants an 8-year, $11.5 million contract.
11 per year.
So basically he wants the size of this sheet of paper, but for his contract.
Exactly.
Everyone knows the dimensions. Come on now, boys.
give me that sheet and I'll sign it. Yeah. So.
I mean, hey, you played well in the playoffs, man. It's time to capitalize. So I don't knock the hustle, but I'm kind of understand where Boston's coming from with that, to be honest.
And it's tough because Boston's an aging team. Obviously, Marchand is, God, he's like 36 or something, but he's one of their best players. So kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't if you're Boston. But
it's like Swayman and Pasta are the only like real young guys. They had some moves this offseason, right? They brought in a younger guy this offseason, didn't they?
I mean, they got Lindholm, who's probably 30, which is, prime of your career.
Young adjacent.
McAvoy's a young defenseman, relatively young, getting mid to upper 20s. But, they're no Blackhawks or Buffalo or Anaheim or San Jose youth. They're definitely starting to creep up there.
Yeah, I feel like we say that every year, and then they just make the playoffs.
I know.
Their prospects develop. Fuck the Bruins. How about that?
That's why I didn't want to take them out of the playoffs, but I was like, I got to bump somebody. And with the Swayman not signed so far, that helps my case for the time being.
Yeah,
I mean, once this episode drops, he's going to sign. It's all going to get blown up.
I reserve the right to add another team from the Atlantic Division. That's all we got for Atlantic and Pacific. You guys don't have anything else, right? About to sign
Nothing else.
All right. Shout out to the 10s and 10s for joining us for another podcast. Hopefully you know how to bet this future series. Don't forget the podcast motto, #FadeUs. Follow us on Instagram, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, and YouTube at Podcast Room303. Follow our sister pod, Revenge of the Pod, on all things social and wherever you get your podcasts. And for myself, Jermaine Mendez, for my co-host, for the executive producers, the EP, and Nutty Putty, we'll see you next time when you come on down and step into the room.